Hello, Internet! Welcome to Wednesday's Serial for March 3rd's comics. I have a pretty big list, so I'm gonna get to it. First up is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Season 8, continuing on with the Twilight arc, which has no relation to the Twilight series, in case you were wondering. Big reveal in here. I'm sure you've heard of it already, but I won't get into that here. It was very well handled, and despite knowing the reveal before reading the comic, it was still really engaging, and then the way they handled it makes me want to go back and reread the entire series. And anytime I have a comic that makes me want to go back and read what I've already read looking for details, really shows A, that they were planning ahead, and B, that it's just great writing and definitely worth a series to be buying rather than just a good series to read. Then always, one of my favorite books is Chew, this week number 9, and this issue gets in on the vampire action a little as well. Maybe, we'll see, it's still in mystery. Chew doesn't use his powers here as much, he's more being an actual detective, not that he wasn't before, but this one just focuses on him doing other things, which is interesting to see the character act more in that way. And there's some subplots here that just get more and more interesting as they develop, and as a terrible, horrifying, eye-burning twist at the end, which you should totally check out. Then there's Deadpool Team Up 895. He's like stuck on a sub, and then there's this really hot chick that he's trying to bang, and it's totally up. Then there's Prelude to the Deadpool Core, number 1, which has Liefeld on art, you know, one of the original co-creators of Deadpool, which is comical from a critical standpoint. And this issue just felt like it was leading up in an extended version, pretty much, of the Merc with the Mouth issue that came out last, and not much more, even though it plays off and supposedly happens after. And this is it. I'm done. I'm out. I am pulling out of the Deadpool franchise. I have a couple more months because of the way the box system works in my comic shop, but after that, I'm out. Then there's Detective Comics 862, and this issue was just darn good. Rucka doing a solid job writing, and whereas the art is not jaw-droppingly the best thing that happened to comics since comics were born, but the art's still solid, and the issue's great. You see Batwoman, Batman chasing the same case, making the same moves, going about it pretty much the same way, which is funny because you see Batman essentially doing the same thing as the new kid on the block, proving what a loser he is. Pay attention, that comes in play later. And also the backup with the question has this great character moment where you see Renee Montoya meet up with Babs, and her figuring out that this amazing Oracle that is such an important figure in the DC universe is Commissioner Gordon's daughter, and she's just hung up on it. And it's just this one of those moments where the writer's like, you know, if these characters don't know about all this, and just playing on the whole secret identity idea there, and really appreciated how he handled that and how it wasn't just a oh whatever thing, but actually a really big deal to someone who worked in Gotham PD for so many years. Great issue, and you know, if you're not picking this up, I don't know what more you need to convince you. Then there's Invincible Iron Man 24, which was a solid issue, which was pretty much just the end of Tony's dream sequence in which he finally wakes up for, you know, after months. Which is great, and all that this does is make me excited to see what happens next, because it's been too long since we've actually seen an Iron Man issue. Then last this week is ASM 623, and, you know, I like the issue. Big shock. And so this week I thought I'd focus on a couple of different things with the Spider-Man comic. The first is the intro, the opening, if you've been kind of slacking or the way you get refreshed, is when you open the page, you open up to this Bugle Girls segment, which I believe is the best opening segment they've had since they relaunched Amazing Spider-Man. Initially being a DB spread opening, and then kind of onto a Parker's POV, his journal, which I thought was the weakest. But this Bugle Girl is great. They have a little sidebar where they have 3 little points that either play into the issue or little side stories that you might forget about, or they kind of touch on, reminds you, oh yeah, this is important, and just makes the issue much more enjoyable to read. And then the second point is the art, especially for this gauntlet bit, has been subpar, and the writing's bringing up for me to like it. But I was looking at the art and what was getting at me about it. Because when you look at it, it doesn't seem like it should be bad. The line art's fairly solid, though probably a touch more simplistic than what you find in most comic nowadays. However, I was looking at it and I really think it's the inking that's setting it off, because they're doing much more of an older style of inking. Nowadays we're used to a more digital style where everything's tight, clean, and fairly thin yet dignified, and you can have all these thick lines, where in here it's much more of a hand-style ink and everything's much more broad strokes and a little bit more inferred than actually detailed, which can work, but in a comic like this, I just don't feel it's the right feel. And because the inking's like that, they have much more earth tone colors to match, whereas, you know, a Spider-Man comic, I'm more used to a vibrant color, and I feel that brings out more in the comic. So, some negatives once for Spider-Man, to be a little more critical. Hey, and normally I just cut out, but this week a certain other comic book vlogger, reviewer, whatever the heck this sort of thing is, Pelican Star called me out. She said basically that Batman's cooler than Spider-Man based off this conversation that we had. Total nerd fight, right? However, I am right. And I need you, the general viewer, to point out to her that I am right by leaving a comment on her or my page as to why Spider-Man's cooler than Batman. This can either just be, you know, yay, Spider-Man's cooler, but come on, add something. Why Batman's lame? That's pretty easy to come up with. Or, you know, why Spider-Man's cool. Or, I guess, vice versa if you're going to go the other way, or what I like to call the wrong way. So, definitely leave a review, and I'm going to link this as a response. You should be able to see her video as well. And so, that's it for this week for Wednesday's Serial, and hope you enjoyed.